If I look at a design now and I look at all the things that we're doing, I'd say around 40% of the deliverables that we produce really are done for. I was well aware who the design manager was working for the other team, and far more experienced and in my mind a far better engineer and design manager than I am. And I still feel deeply inadequate and insecure in my position. But I think you just got to, I actually don't know when I became a leader. I don't even know if I am a leader yet. But if I think about it, one of the things I did early was I tried to be everything to everyone. Massive mistake.
Every great project begins with design. But what about designing your career? In this episode of Building Doors, I sit down with Stuart Cook, a multi-award-winning engineering leader who led a $400 million infrastructure program in his early 30s. From the Ipswich motorway upgrade to mentoring the next generation of engineers, Stuart's journey is a story of courage, curiosity, and a commitment to growth. We explore in this episode what it means to step up early, lead large teams in a traditional industry, and challenge the idea that leadership only comes with decades of experience. Stuart shares how one opportunity born out of timing and determination changed the trajectory of his career, and how that experience fuels his passion for mentoring others today. This episode goes beyond project delivery. It's about designing for sustainability in our people, our leadership, and our industry. Engineering and infrastructure are facing a generational shift. As experienced leaders move towards retirement, the next wave must be ready, and not just technically, but emotionally and strategically. This episode is a call to action for emerging engineers to step forward with confidence, and for leaders to make space, and for all of us to reimagine how we design for longevity in our projects, our people, and our purpose. Welcome to the Building Doors podcast. Thanks for coming on, Stuart. Let's get started on your career, because I always like to start there, because I find it really fascinating why people choose an industry or choose this industry specifically. So let's rewind back to where it all began. Why did you choose engineering?
I like everything, and probably everyone, I'll say I fell into it. As I grew up, my granddad, my pop, I spent a lot of time with him. He retired at 55. He was a young granddad, so I was probably about 4 or 5 when he retired. I vaguely remember him going to work when I was really little, and spent a lot of time with him. And he was a bridge foreman in his days. He would tell me stories, all the stories I heard about the different bridges he built, all up and down the New South Wales coast. My mum and Nan and my uncle moved around with him as they built bridges, and they were just fantastic stories. And the idea that I could still go and see these bridges, I can still go and see them today, as a legacy of what he's done. He's probably been passed away for, almost 10 years now. It was a really inspiring thing for me from a young age. So that whole idea of leaving a legacy really resonated with me early, but never wanted to be an engineer, never even knew what an engineer was. So throughout primary school, I think I thought I wanted to be a scientist because I like the idea of science. And then early in high school, I liked the idea of architecture. And I remember we had a careers day and an engineer came, and I kind of like fast cars, as all young boys do, so I thought it was someone who worked on engines, was an engineer, or maybe drove trains, and then realised that this person was a civil engineer, and that really resonated with me, and it kind of stuck from there forward. It was a bit of a juggle between that or architecture, but as much as I liked buildings, my artistic flair wasn't there, so it became engineering for me. And then that pushed me down the roads and bridges path to follow Pop. Wasn't smart enough to be a structural engineer designing buildings, so roads and bridges it was, and that's how I ended up in the civil engineering field.
And so when you got into I always like to ask a question too to get a feel, when you got into actually doing the job, how much did your studies prepare you for the reality of being an engineer?
Neil, so I studied on the Gold Coast, Griffith University, great university, but very much focused on concrete design, tall building design. I think I did 1 or 2 projects at uni based on traffic engineering. We might have done one on surveying. We might have done one on pavement design, but very minimal. It was basically all learnt on the job. So I was very, very fortunate when I was in my first year at university. I picked up a scholarship with Department of Transport and Main Roads. At that point in time, covered my HECS and paid me a small weekly allowance, which was excellent, enough to cover my rent so that I could focus on my studies and having a good time at university rather than working a second job. But the real good part about that was that from a young age during my holidays, I was in and amongst TMR and getting work experience there. And from the very early years, all I was doing was following older, generally inspectors around on construction sites. But again, really getting that exposure to construction works really resonated to me because it was the same sort of guys that my pop was. They'd been around construction works their whole life. They were now at a point where they were overseeing and inspecting them, and I got that exposure. And then being in and around that environment really helped me through the back end of my studies, understand what was important and what wasn't to a certain degree. But really all the learning in terms of, I ended up going down the highway design path, alignment design, geometric design. All that was done on the job. Like uni was great in terms of the old cliche of teaching you how to learn, but it was really turning up, reading design guides. And again, my generation was so fortunate to be mentored by guys who were designing roads and major highways without computers, designing them all by hand. So I got to learn by the last generation of guys who were doing these projects based on stuff that they were drawing by hand, which was just amazing. So really, really fortunate to learn from that vintage.
Touching on that brings something to light that we're going to have as a challenge with mentoring and bringing through the next generation of engineers. So these people have done it by hand. Now we've got AI, we've got the disruption of technology, and also training and mentoring a generation of engineers who there's so many other factors and variables now that can make it challenging as a leader around flexible working, you know, that time in the office and time learning from being around people, but also AI and how we integrate that. What are your thoughts on some of the challenges now for us to mentor and lead this next generation coming through?
I'm really in two minds because if you had spoken to the people who taught me, they probably would have said that using Excel to do your drainage calculations, using 12D to do your geometric design, using Circular to do your paving designs was cheating and you weren't learning properly and you weren't going to get a proper feel for it. We all survived and we all got through it. Having said that, we did that under their mentorage. So we were learning from people who had done it from first principles. Now, the more and more advanced we get with things like AI, the more work is becoming automated, the less of a feel for the actual process you need to have. I think that we'll be okay in that we still have enough people around that understand the core principles, that they'll be there to mentor the ones coming through. They'll develop that feel, and then hopefully as we move along, we'll continue to develop that kind of instinct that you have for engineering. The challenge will be if we actually start to lose young engineers from the workforce and get them replaced by AI, how we continue to bring that on. But look, I mean, I'm sure we've all been there with changes before. I think it's just going to be how we adapt to it. How we learn in this more and more remote working environment is another big question. As someone who's been around the industry for a long time and grew up in offices and hadn't really been exposed to remote working really until COVID, my initial thought is that it's a negative that we're spending less time in offices overall. I do see advantages of being out of them, but I think that human connection and that learning through osmosis and that collaboration you really can't get outside of an office. But having said that, like when I look at my kids and in their spare time they're on things like Minecraft and their mates are in there, or they're on their communication apps or whatever it is, like they are learning to communicate digitally. So it just may be that we're a bit too old to understand what that next kind of chapter is going to look like. So
how old are your kids?
My boys are 8, 10 and 12.
8, 10 and 12.
8, 10 and
12. Three boys.
3 boys.
Busy household.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so if we're looking at that, then we've got the hybrid work and factoring that in and trying to make sure that there's that learning by osmosis. What are some of the other challenges like that you see for the engineering profession going forward with the productivity gap that we've got in Queensland and all the work that's coming, the skill shortage? Tell me about some of the challenges you see from the engineering profession and how we're going to need to adapt.
Productivity is a hard one. Like, I think as an industry, we're outputting more work in terms of man hours than, I'm not saying than we ever have, but that we always have. It's just, are all those man hours productive? So if I look at a design now and I look at all the things that we're doing, I'd say around 40% of the deliverables that we produce really are done for compliance and red tape purposes. So there's a big part as an industry we have to remove a lot of that from our projects. It's very much crept in over the last 10 or 15 years, and I think it's our job to now work that back out. So I don't know if we've got a productivity issue, more so that we're now doing more and more things that don't really add value, and we're probably not focused on the end goal as much. And I think we are going to have to tweak that a little bit to get to focus that.
When you spoke about the productivity thing, it's interesting because to me, when you speak about productivity, it brings it back to the person, right? If you say as an industry we're not productive, it makes me think, well, I'm not being productive enough in the work that I'm doing, whereas it's not. It's changing the way we talk about it, because it's not, if you look at procurement and the processes, like all the red tape as you described, it's not a productivity gap, it's almost a procurement gap, or it's a gap in terms of red tape or risk, managing risk, really.
The productivity bit frustrates me a bit. Like, we talk about low productivity and then you immediately think that the people out there on the ground aren't digging holes fast enough, or the designers aren't drawing quick enough, or whatever. But I don't think that's a problem at all. I think when you look at projects holistically, we're delivering more as projects now than we ever have. The amount of social benefits, the amount of environmental outcomes, the social procurement that's happening, all these things are good things, but we can't measure a project today versus 20 years ago and hold them to the same accord. So they're just different things. We're delivering more, and the same thing goes with design. Like, when I look at what we're designing now versus what we designed 20 years ago, when we designed a project 20 years ago, we had the set of drawings, we had the model, and we had the contract documents, and that was all. Now we've got a suite of superfluous things. We've got many design gates we need to go through, and there's a really onerous review project and questions around risk and responsibility transfer. So I don't think we're less productive as an industry. I think we're caught up in more red tape and doing more around projects than we have been previously.
I'm glad you touched on that, because and I have lots of friends that work across different industries, and obviously being in this industry for such a long time, lots of friends in this industry. I don't know anyone that works as hard as people in construction infrastructure, with the exclusion of doctors and nurses and stuff. I'm just saying, like, as an industry, it's not like people aren't working hard.
No.
And the hours can be long, as well, when for a lot of people starting off their career and things like that. I've talked to graduates when they first got out and gone, wow, the hours, are an adjustment initially when you're learning and dealing with the industry too. That can be an adjustment period for people. So tell me a little bit about your career in leadership, right? Like, one of the things we've spoken about in the past is, seizing opportunity. Tell me more around your ethos now around how young, driven engineers can get into leadership roles. What do they need to be thinking about?
If you're going to talk about an engineer exclusively, or anyone really.
Anyone really. I
think the first thing you need to do before you worry about leadership is build your core skill set and work out where you can add value. I don't really believe in the leader who purely just wants to be a leader. I think in our industry, at least, you need to understand where you can add value first and apply that, and then build a solid base, and then let the leadership flow from that. So some people are naturally will gravitate towards leadership roles, and I've always been one who really did gravitate towards that. But one thing I did when I was younger, I got some really good advice that you really need to build out those technical competencies first. So one thing that I really focused on first was making sure that I could really add value in what I did as an engineer from a technical perspective. Now, you may not be an engineer, you might be in sales, and I think that would then be learning more about how you're going to sell more, or you might be in I don't know, you might be in from an engineering perspective, one of our designers. So you're not engineering per se, but you're learning how to design really well. I think it's about learning that craft and becoming not so much a master of that craft, but becoming very competent so that you can talk from a place of authority, and then thinking about that leadership jump from there. Some people will be excellent leaders. I've got plenty of excellent leaders who aren't in management roles, and I think it's not to confuse one with the other. And I think that's, particularly in my field, design, is a big trap. People want to be project managers because they feel like that's the journey up the tree, whereas management is, in my mind, a discipline like anything else, and you can be just as strong a technical leader as you can a project manager. So I think where I'm coming from there is learn your craft, work out how you can add value to the field that you're in, and then let the leadership opportunities come to you. And the leadership opportunity should be where you can start to help people, help clients, help the people you work around, help others, add value. And I think as you start to deliver that, people will start to gravitate towards you, and you'll naturally lead through that process.
What are some of the qualities, because you've spoken about it as well, I think one of the things I've talked about in the past, and I'm curious with your thoughts on it, is almost like acting above your role as well, acting outside of it and taking initiative for opportunities. Tell me more about what that looks like. You know, if I'm an engineer and I am driven, what are some of the things? Because I'm conscious you were promoted, in your 30s and leading a $400 million program of works, right?
Yep.
So there would have been things that you did or took on to show that initiative and ability.
Oh, sure. So, I mean, I got the opportunity to lead a project. I think I was probably my late 20s, maybe even when I picked it up. I think I was when I got the tender design. So that opportunity came through a job where I had pushed really, really hard to work myself up to be a civil lead on a project. The project was secured and locked in, and I'd been pushing myself, as we talk about, technically making sure I could add value, got myself to a leadership position. And then just by way of chance, we got awarded this project, and the design manager, very soon after we'd been awarded, took on another role and left the position. I put my hand up at that point in time and really put myself forward to take on that position. Really fought tooth and nail to get it. In hindsight, I was very young, and I'm really grateful for everyone who gave me an opportunity to take that role on. But I put my hand up, said I could do it. I think I showed a lot of self-belief, and I think that translated, and I was so fortunate to be able to do it. And really, I had the advantage of being young, being naive, being driven, being full of energy, and thrust into that role early. I had some ideas on what would work, and I was really lucky to do the tender, and then we were successful in the project and then delivering the detailed design. So that was a massive opportunity for me. But even through that process, we had one of our guys come over from Perth to mentor me through that role. So he was amazing. He'd been there, done the project before. He actually slotted into a civil lead role on the project, supporting me, very much behind the scenes there all the time for me to fall back on, but really let me have the limelight. And it was just a fantastic thing to see. Like, I would not have got through that without him. Completely selfless thing to do. He came from Perth, did it for 12 weeks, and gave me the confidence to step out there and lead, knowing that I had a safety net to fall back on. So really fortunate.
So that was something that they did to set you up for success, recognising you had the, potential, the leadership drive, all of those qualities you'd mentioned, but that skills or that knowledge transfer or that gap, that there could be somebody there that could help you there. So he just came for that 12 weeks. Was that an actual strategic thing that they did, or does it just happen to be that he took on that role of mentoring you?
Oh, so he's a guy, Atwood, that I'd worked with a few times before. Massive amount of respect for him. And look, I think it was the strategic thing for BG&E. Obviously, developing me was well within their interests. But yeah, look, I think it really come down to the individual. Like, if I look around the country now, there's not too many people who'd come around the country for 12 weeks and leave home behind to be there on a project in another state to help a young guy fulfill his leadership ambition. So I think it's pretty unique that you see someone do something like that.
What a legend.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, what a legend to do that. You've touched on something which I think is really important, because I think so often people think about the role in isolation, whereas when you're looking at a role or bringing someone into a team, if you get someone that's got 80% of the role and there's a 20% gap, thinking holistically and going, who have I got in and around my current business to support them? Where's knowledge transfer possible? If we've got somebody that's retiring, gosh, how can we capture all of that knowledge and IP that they have brought with them? What are some of the other things you've had that experience as well, but now you're in a leadership role too. How do you support mentoring for your teams?
I mean, mentoring has been absolutely critical in my design journey. Mentoring is very much a personal thing, but I believe. So I think first and foremost, an individual needs to want to be mentored. So you have to be receptive to that first and foremost. There's nothing worse than the mentoring programs where you get placed in it and you have a monthly or a bi-monthly or whatever it is, catch up with someone, and it's under the guise of mentoring, because it really doesn't work. So I think through my journey, when mentoring's worked most effectively is when I've really needed it and wanted it and sorted out. And I think you'll hear the cliche a lot that you get a lot both ways from a mentoring relationship. And I think that that's very true and that you do. But I also believe that in a mentoring relationship, as a mentee, you have so much more to gain than the mentor has. A mentor will pick up little tidbits from you, but you need to go in there and be really engaged and understand what it is you need from the mentor and be really respectful of them and their time and really kind of go in there intentional and focused. So what have I learned about mentoring? I've learned that it is the most important thing for a young professional in any field to do. You got to learn more through that than anything else. But that person needs to want to be mentored and they need to have an idea of what they want out of it. You can't go to an individual and mentor them into a successful role because it doesn't really work that way. One
of the things you touched on early, which a lot of the young to intermediate engineers speak to me about through NAWIC or QMC, whatever the scenario is where we're having a chat. And it's something that people have said to me, particularly the generation coming through, is imposter syndrome, feeling they're not ready for the role and feeling really unsure. And I think one of the things that you spoke about was, you just giving it a go and just kind of pushing yourself forward. Were there... And I share this because I want people to be aware that everyone gets nervous and everyone has doubts, right? Were there times where you were sort of like, taking on this role and you're like, wow, this is a big role, and felt at times that, quite challenged by that shift into that leadership role?
Well, I think that's just a given in terms of whenever you're stepping up to an opportunity. Like, I've just finished a tender design recently, and I was well aware who the design manager was working for the other team, and far more experienced, and in my mind a far better engineer and design manager than I am, and I still feel deeply inadequate and insecure in my position. But I think you just got to put that to the side and work to your strengths. So through Rocklet Adara, I was only young. I was leading a team. I'd say most people in the team would have been older than me. So I think that from a young age, I just learned to put that insecurity aside as best I could and do the best job that I could. But never once did I not feel that I wasn't the right person for the job and that someone better could have been doing it. And I still feel that to this day. I think it's just realizing that will always be with you and just using that to drive you to do the best you can.
I'm glad you shared that, because I think so often people think that people in these positions that take on these roles, that they don't have those fears and doubts, whereas the reality is it's just human nature. You're going to feel the fear and kind of do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
But I think what you spoke about there, using that fear to drive you to perform and to keep honing your craft rather than letting it stop you of going. I've had people go, I'll do it when I'm ready. The problem is, I say to people all the time, it's just like having kids. You're never going to feel ready. And then you have your second or your third in that case, and you're still constantly, facing surprises.
Yeah.
So when you became a leader, what were some of the things that you learnt the hard way too? Because there's always hard lessons when you're a first-time leader that you go through and, learn about people.
I actually don't know when I became a leader. I don't even know if I am a leader yet. If I think about it, one of the things I did early was I tried to be everything to everyone. Massive mistake. So I think learning what you can do and what you can't do. Probably the more experience I've gained as years have gone on, I probably try and do less and less and less and just contribute to the overall direction of the team and try and work out where people's strengths are and then guide a team in and around that. I think the big mistake I see with leaders is when they try and get too embedded in the detail and try and take accountability for you should take accountability, but take responsibility is probably a better word for doing everything on a job when that's not the right way for them to do it. I seen Bede Noonan speak, who's the Ashley owner of CEO, last week at a Roads Australia event, and he's someone I really look up to, and he brings this relaxed demeanour into everything he does. And he was talking about how he can go into a project and doesn't even look at a financial spreadsheet anymore and just gets a feel for how a project is going by the demeanour of people in the room and how people are interacting and what the feeling is. And I'm such a big proponent of that. Like, one thing that I've always done is really try to lead with my gut, and I take a gut feeling on something and then go towards that, suffer the consequences later if it's a right or a wrong decision. But I think you very quickly get a feeling of how something's going. And I think the more leadership experience I've got, it's more does this project feel like it's going in the right direction? Does everyone feel like they're being heard? Is my client happy? Do I have multiple stakeholders? Do they all feel like they're engaged? And at a point in time, a project may not look good on paper from a financial perspective or from a program perspective, or you might even be struggling with quality issues. But if everything feels good and there's a good feeling on the project, as much as that kind of sounds like kumbaya stuff, I've got a lot of, from experience, it's those projects that will always find a way in the end. Those relationships will be there. The right people are on the projects. The project might stumble, but you'll get there in the end. I've also been on a lot of good projects that look great on paper, that have performed financially and have just been a massive burden and a drain on everyone and been a horrible project at the end of the day. So I'm a big proponent of, I guess, my leadership style is making sure everything feels right, making sure the team culture's there, and then really making sure the good people are there to get the work done in behind that. Like in my field, if the design manager's doing too much, if they're too involved in the detail, if they're in the nitty gritty, then they're not doing their job right, and they need to be letting other people do that and focusing more on the big picture.
And I'm glad you spoke about the feel on the projects and going by that gut feel and looking at how people are interacting, how happy the client is, because one of the things, or one of the focus everyone is talking about is collaborative contracting, right? That's the focus going forward. Sally, when she came on here, was speaking about that as well. My thoughts around that is, and it fascinates me from a psychology perspective, how, we've talked about the red tape and all that sort of stuff and the procedures and procurement that are in place. What drives those kind of cultures, those collaborative cultures where the client's happy? What are some of the things we need to think of in terms of our teams and what needs to change in the sector or do more of to drive collaboration?
Collaboration, in my mind, comes down to the people you have on the project and how they work together. Some of the most collaborative projects I've seen in my career have been hard dollar D&C contracts. So I definitely don't think you need a collaborative contract per se to achieve collaborative outcomes. And I think sometimes calling something a collaborative contract by name can lead you down a false pathway that therefore you will get collaboration. So I think it really comes down to the people and how well they gel together and how much effort they actually put into developing those relationships that they need to deliver a project. One thing I'm a massive proponent on is really forcing teams to come together and do things outside of the day-to-day. And it can be painful and people don't like doing it, and we all have personal lives, but in my mind, it's a weekly 8 a.m. coffees that we have where we shout the team coffee, everyone comes together, we get to know each other at a personal level. It's the Friday afternoon drinks that we might have once a month where we come together and we talk socially. It's celebrating someone's birthday. It's doing all these things to form the bonds between the people so that when you're in a hard conversation, you can work through it and treat the person as another person rather than an adversary. So look, I think it really comes down to those interpersonal relationships. It's selecting the people. Like, I'd so much rather have someone on my team who's got good interpersonal skills, has got good emotional intelligence, can read a client and what they're thinking. A lot of the times we talk about keeping clients happy. We've also got to keep, if you're talking about a D&C contract, which is where a lot of our projects are at the moment, you might have a client, you might also have a contractor you're working for, you've got your own design team, you're probably working in a JV, so you've got multiple parties there, you've got stakeholders who will have a big stake in the project but might not have any financial contribution, and you're really trying to work out how to herd all these cats around. So I think it's about having people on your project who've got those good personal skills, making sure you've got the technical people there as well, but it's making sure that you're really focusing on selecting that team of who's going to work together well, first and foremost, to get the outcomes. I think any contract in the world can be collaborative. It's just how well those people work together. You understand what's a win for everyone, what's a loss for everyone, what success looks like. And then if you can work towards achieving that for everyone, then you're going to have good outcomes.
The more I learn about the sector and the more I learn about how leadership has changed and the multiple stakeholders and different personalities and priorities you have to manage, the more I'm convinced that a degree in psychology and business with engineering is kind of what everyone needs when you get to these levels, because it's, yes, of course, you're still managing, and as you said, you need to know your craft and have worked through that part of it, but then it becomes so much more around managing all different people, their priorities, their agendas, and getting them all to work towards a common goal.
Yeah, like, look, no engineering outcome is the same. Engineers are very black and white. What we say is always right, and our peer will never agree with us. So when you're leading a project and you need to get multiple different SMEs from multiple different organisations to agree on one technical outcome, it's there's nothing that you're going to learn at university other than maybe a psychology degree that's gonna help you map through that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go to that. Was that a shift for you as well as, because this is what I find fascinating about engineers, is that you hone your craft and you become really passionate about problem solving and knowing the solution. But then you work in a room with all other people, often similar to you, that are also passionate about problem solving and the solution. How did you evolve or learn over time? Or was it innate, I guess, where you go, okay, I'm going to come with this viewpoint. How do I work with others to get the best outcome for the project? Did you hone that skill over time?
I don't know.
It seems a challenge to me, you know, because I deal with all these people all the time. I'm like, how do you all agree? Is there like this level of compromise and like greater good? I don't know.
I don't know. Like maybe that's a secret sauce that none of us can see. That's in some people. That's not in others. My view has always been to try and work out, sounds like such a cliche, but work out what the best outcome is for the project and work towards that. And as long as everyone's aligned, then you're going to get to the right outcome. There's a big part in being able to influence to get your point across. I don't know. I think it comes down to emotional intelligence. I think it comes down to making sure everyone's viewpoint's heard, making sure everyone's had a say, and then involving people in decisions. It's something that with experience you get better at. Some people are naturally better at it than others. Some people are always bad at. And I think over time you develop relationships with people, you understand how they work, and it becomes easier. But there's never a right answer. And I think what you learn in engineering is that it's always a compromise. Like whatever the outcome is, you've never landed on the optimal solution. You're constrained by multiple constraints. There's multiple different answers. It's about the right answer at the right time and getting the job done. So I think it's becoming comfortable and understanding that you're never going to have the perfect outcome, letting everyone have their say, and then letting the project dictate which way things go.
I don't know what it is, but I've come to, I was reading a book about it, and it was a psychology-based book, but just around, decision-making and the process behind that. And I liked the analogy of there is no right or wrong decision. As soon as you come to peace with, say that to people when they're looking at career moves, I'm like, there's actually no right or wrong decision, only consequences from the decision you make, that either way you go. It's not like one decision's going to be better than the other. It's just going to be different and provide you different outcomes and challenges. Whether personally or professionally. And I love that, because when you stop, it almost stops that overthinking when you stop worrying about being a wrong or right decision or this is my solution. When you start to look at best for project and, just the best overall solution or decision that you can make, you stop. I think one of the things that can get in the way is ego. As well, where I've seen engineers complain when they're working for leaders is that they use knowledge as a shield or protect their knowledge and don't want to share information because there's that ego or even insecurity about sharing information. I think that what you spoke about there with your mentor willing to share and, impart that knowledge is going to be massive for us going forward. We need those kind of people.
Oh, for sure. I think there's no more important job than a leader in the industry can do than mentor. It's something that I'm super passionate about, making sure that there are people there and me, myself, giving back where I can to provide that mentoring, because it's how that next generation grow. It's how I continue to grow as a mentor, as a leader myself. So,
Sustainability. I'm just going to put it out there. What are some of your thoughts around where we're heading from a sustainability and design perspective, some of the challenges? Tell me, I guess, your views.
My views on it is I'm a dad of 3 boys, and I'm super passionate about making sure they inherit a world that is better than what they were born into. So I guess that's my first and foremost point. I'm a keen surfer, keen fisherman, so I'm really keen on the environment and making sure that we don't do any undue harm. Sustainability as a discipline, I think, adds a lot of value to projects. Sustainability is a process I personally believe we've seen become clogged down in the red tape that I kind of spoke of earlier. We're seeing massive processes on projects where we need to jump through hoops to get sustainability points, which I don't believe is the right outcome. I personally see how much money goes to the sustainability element of projects to score these points, to write reports, to get points, and I just think it's a waste of resources that we could be spending elsewhere. Having said that, it's easy for me to throw stones. I know it's something that's important for us to measure. I just don't believe the current process is doing it the right way. I feel like even from a consultancy perspective, the amount of money we spend on providing sustainability advice could be 10% of what we currently do, and we could reinvest the rest into things that are actual sustainable outcomes. I think back to projects that happened in the early 2010s where we've seen things like rainwater tanks and really good sustainable practical outcomes appear on jobs, and that was fantastic, and I'd love to see us kind of transition back to there a bit more, where rather than we've got a long, arduous, deeply reviewed, red tape driven sustainability points process whereby we're saying, well, we're going to target these 2 or 3 things from the outset, and we're going to do a really good job on those, and we're going to invest 0.5% or 1% of the total project budget in that, and we're going to go hard at it. So that's my view on where it's at. I think a lot of our specifications as well aren't aligned with the idea that we're heading towards net zero, if we are heading towards net zero, or sustainability as a whole. They're very stringent. They don't allow a lot of innovation. They are that way for a reason, because we want a high degree of reliability, but it makes it very difficult achieving sustainable outcomes when your key driver is long-term resilience in terms of how something performs. So I think we just need to think about what it is we want and what we're going to target with sustainability. I think it's hugely important. I just feel like at the moment we're not spending productive time or money or effort as well as we could be.
You've just led into my next question, which is a question I always ask, but when you talked about your sons and then also talked about sustainability and why it's important, one of the questions I always ask people is, what's the legacy you hope to leave for your life's work, both professionally and personally? Or you can just pick one.
I don't know. I used to care a lot about the projects that I designed, and I still care about them. And I'm incredibly proud of them. So there's a number of jobs in and around Brisbane that I love to show my boys to. I was design manager for the Coomera Connect to South project, and I can't wait to drive on that for the first time with my boy. So that will be really special. But since I've had kids, I kind of care about that a little bit less. And I don't know, like I think I care about more now just about being a good dad and a good friend than anything else. The legacy seems like an odd thing to me. Like, I don't know who the Prime Minister was before Bob Hawke. So, I mean, I could probably think hard about it and I might come up with a name, but it just doesn't really matter. So I'm kind of more about being a good dad, being a good friend, being a good person to work with, having a good time, enjoying what I do. Legacy doesn't matter as much to me, funnily enough, as it used to.
And kids change that for you?
Yeah. Like, look, as long as for me, I've been a good dad to my kids, they love me, I've been a good mate, I've been a good husband, I'll be happy with that, I think.
Being a good dad is and I think even when I had kids, everything shifted for me around the fact that wherever I work, wherever I've left, whoever I've worked with, they're not going to remember the time I had with them or the impact I had with them like my children will.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you see these little people and you're just their whole world.
Yep.
And so much so my daughter wants to be an engineer now. I took her to one of the events and she's like, I'm like, why? And she's like, because I want to create and invent stuff. There was I don't know if you know Yasmin at CPB, they were sitting together and she just was like, Yasmin is just like me. Because my daughter always loves science and stuff like that. We always thought it would be my son that would be interested in engineering, but now she's telling everyone she wants to be an engineer. So I think, you start to see in your kids, they're little sponges, right? They're soaking up everything they hear and learn. And yeah, that is part of the legacy, really.
No, that's awesome. Yaz is a great role model. So, good on her. That's really cool.
Good on you, Yaz. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the rocket round. And so the rocket round is where we ask questions just around you personally to get to know you. So first one is coffee or wine?
Oh, gosh. Probably coffee because I can drink it whenever, but it would be, I don't think I'd be able to give up either.
Yeah, well, you can drink coffee whenever. I'm pretty sure BG would have an issue if you were drinking wine whenever.
Yeah.
Cats or dogs?
Definitely dogs.
Dogs, okay. And favourite holiday destination?
Oh, that's too hard. I just came back from New Zealand, which was absolutely unreal. So at the moment, it would be New Zealand.
Yeah. Tell us about other podcasts or books that you read or listen to.
Oh, gosh, I consume a lot of podcasts and books. I like to listen to audiobooks while I run. I don't know. I kind of go through one or two a month. I like biographies, really like biographies, mainly nonfiction. Oh, actually, the book about the fella who climbed Mount Everest and there was the big snowstorm and they lost a big part of the crew. They made a movie from it. That'd be my favourite book. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. And then podcasts, look, I listen to a wide range of podcasts. Yeah, whatever's. Everything from fishing, which is something that I'm really passionate about, sports, business, a wide range of podcasts.
Do you do fishing competitions?
I do a little bit.
My dad used to do fishing competitions. I remember always as a kid, my weekends, so much fishing competitions.
Yeah, no, it was something I did a lot with my kid. When I was younger with my dad, lost it for 20 years while I focused on surfing, then picked it back up with my sons, and now I'm older. It's something that I've got back into again.
Do your sons, so I'm a bit too impatient for fishing. My dad's like, you are ruining it. You can't keep asking me if we've got a fish. This is the experience. How do your sons go with fishing?
It's different. So they're all different. So my eldest enjoys it. He's the one who got me back into it. Middle boy hates it. And then my youngest is quite enjoying it as well. So.
Oh, that's good.
I think it's a very personal thing, but yeah.
And what makes you feel like you're home?
My family. I don't really care where I am. It's just being around family.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on as a guest. I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot more about you as well, which is always, interesting and my favourite part. And it's just so great to hear about your career history and getting an insight to that, because I think it helps a lot of people that are going through their own journey now, and many of you who will be listening and going through their first leadership role, I'm sure, in the next 5 to 10 years. So where can people connect with you, learn more about you if they want to follow you on LinkedIn or
Sure, LinkedIn would probably be it. All you're going to see on Facebook or Instagram is fishing photos, so don't look there. But LinkedIn would be a place to go.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate given the time to come on. And as always, I say to people, like, share, subscribe, rate and review. I do love that a lot of you reach out to the guests because the guests tell me. So please continue to do that, because if something touched you or, was particularly, moving for you in the episode, they love to hear it. So please do continue to do that and reach out and share your insights. And you never know who might need to hear this episode. So please continue to share. Thanks for listening. If this episode gave you new insights, don't let them go to waste. Take action. Apply them. And if you want more insider strategies from the best in construction and infrastructure, make sure to subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the leaders who open the most doors aren't waiting for opportunities, they're building them.